Okay, welcome to our first WheresSpot Zoom meeting. The idea for this, again, is really to talk about the loans that we can get to keep our rents paid and keep our employees paid. It's less about us, though we're included in that when it comes to employees. It's really about how do we keep this going for the next couple months. There are three people I want to talk about. I want to talk me. I'm one of the co-founders of WheresSpot with Perry. I also have a company called The Field, which is post-production advertising conglomerate, whatever it is. And Perry has his own company, Schaefer Rogers, which is a repping firm. So Perry reps directors, post-production. He reps, I think right now, some 3D artists and a couple other people. So he can tell you more about that later. But Perry and I have been doing WheresSpot for about 20 something years.
Too freaking long.
Yeah, too freaking long, but it's fun. We have a good time doing it. And during times like this, we really think maybe we should expand it back up again. So who knows, maybe we will. And then I've invited Robert Aids. Robert Aids is my long-term accountant and also a financial planner. And he has a Los Angeles-based CPA firm, and he specializes in wealth management, financial planning, and tax services for people in our business, entertainment, and a lot of commercial production people. So he's been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this with him for about 30, I think, years. So it's been a long time. So when I went to figure out how to do this, he was the first person I called. So those are who are gonna be with us today, and I'll let Robert take over once I'm done with this. So first of all, the one thing I wanted to say that everybody I've talked to said the best way to succeed is to work with your bank and your accountant, because they have the insight and they have the details of what's needed, and when it changes, they're the first person to hear about it, and they can get back to you. I don't know how many of you have great relationships with your bankers, but I've found in my business, which has been many, some of you may know, Mad River Post, Audio Engine, and now The Field. The thing that's always helped me get through the tough times is a great relationship with my bank, both for loans and now for whatever I want to call it. I'm not sure these are loans or grants, but whatever we're doing now. So the best way to succeed is work with your accountant and your banker. We're talking about two things, the PPP loan, and we're going to talk about the EIDL loan as well. But the first thing I asked, because I have a little bit of cash sitting in the company. Do I need, if this is a loan, how much is it going to cost me? Am I going to have to pay it back? Or is it a grant? They keep talking about it being a grant, but they call it a loan. Is it a grant? Is it a loan? It's pretty unclear what it really is. I know that they're talking about giving some money back or letting you not pay it back. But it starts off as a loan, and we don't know what the answer is exactly. And Robert will talk a little bit more about that. It's very specific about what you can use the money for. And I'm going to ask Robert to actually do that. What can I use the money for? Can I use it to, go out to dinner? Or do I have to use it for my employees? Or do I have to use it for my rent? Can I use it to pay back a loan for some equipment that I bought? What can I use it for? I'm going to go through this really quick. What I found when I had to do this is there were four different things that you needed. You needed the application, of course, and I think there's now on version 4, maybe it's version 5, but you need to fill out their application. That's the Small Business Association loan. One of the things that they asked for that a lot of people don't have is the NAICS code, N-A-I-C-S. It's a code for all industries. And I put the link on there if you guys can actually see it. It's pretty small. But if you search online for NAICS codes, you will, N-A-I-C-S codes, you'll get their page and you can search through it. I used 512191, which is the entertainment code for entertainment. What you need for proof of your business is you need your articles of incorporation. And in my case, I have a DBA. My company's called one thing. I use The Field as my DBA, so I had to have the assumed name paperwork as well. And I actually sent them something that I got from the tax authority, which was a certificate of good standing, which I needed for some application that I put in. So I had it, so I gave that to them as well. IRS forms. You need the 940 and 941. Those are employee forms. They want to know that you've paid your taxes and you've paid your employees. So they want to know what you've paid your employees, how much you've paid your employees, and they want to make sure you've paid your unemployment. I also submitted sort of an overall wage and tax form that had all that stuff in a different format. I don't know why they asked specifically, didn't ask for it. It was easy to see. So I sent that along. And for the bank needed to know that I own the company and to certify that I was the owner, whether I was 100% or 50%, and there were other people. Who owns the company? You need that information. You need to be able to provide that stuff to them. Because if you don't have that, you're not going to get in there. Yes, Perry.
Yeah, I just, when Michael and I were talking about this earlier, I think I did the form correctly through Citibank, and they didn't ask for my NAICS, and they didn't ask for my articles of incorporation or any of that stuff. And yeah, I submitted just the 941, I think, and no, that bank form that you had wasn't required of me. So I guess maybe there's a lot. I don't know if it changed by the day or it changes by institution. I don't know.
Maybe it's by institution. Robert, do you have any thought about that?
Well, we didn't see it on our applications, but it seemed like the process was evolving as the money was all getting sucked out by the public. So, I mean,
maybe they started asking for more stuff to make it easier.
Yeah, most of the things you mentioned, we were required to provide. We just weren't asked to give that code, but it may have been on the form somewhere.
Maybe that was my bank that wanted it, so who knows? Okay, great. As of Tuesday, this is the information for those of you, because a lot of people who own companies like I do are a sole proprietor for an LLC, and you don't pay yourself on payroll, which means there's no proof of how much you've made that way. And the question is, can you include yourself? And the answer is yes. Robert, I think, will tell you that later, but you can, but only to $100,000 a year. Also, as of I think yesterday, there's no more money. Okay, EIDL loan is an advance, but they also call it a grant. So was it a loan? Was it a grant? Should I apply for it? I waited a little bit too long, I think. I may have missed it because I kept saying, I don't just want $10,000 I'm going to have to pay back. It's like not enough. So, but then I realized, no, that might be a grant. It may be included in what you have to pay back as a total. I don't know. Robert maybe can help us with that. But it's a little bit different. Yes.
So I'll jump in. Veronica, if you're on, since you're the first person I know who I think actually got it, does it come with something that indicates what the hell it is and how it may or may not relate to the PPP?
You're talking about the idle?
Yeah.
Well, from what I understand, and sorry, I was typing when you asked that initial question, or what Michael was saying prior to it. No, I received so originally and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, but originally it was up to $10,000 per company, and then it adjusted to be $1,000 per employee. So since I am an S Corp and I am an employee, I received $1,000 this morning, and that's it. So it just showed up in my.
Did they tell you what it's for? What you can use it for?
No, there is Perry and I were on the call earlier. There is, I can throw it in the chat if you'd like. I will throw it in the chat. Give me a second.
Okay. Perry, can you make sure that, are there any other people waiting? Because I can't see that screen.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I got the $1,000 yesterday with no email, no info, nothing about the remaining balance of what I've requested or what's available.
Jake, was this the EIDL or was this the PPP?
This was the EIDL. I've received both, but I haven't received any guidance on the remaining balance of the EIDL beyond the 1,000.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I just want to make sure that there's nobody else waiting. No, doesn't seem to be. Okay, good. Okay. So basically that was the end of my PowerPoint. We can start having these questions, but first I want to have Robert sort of give his impression of what I just said. Oh, by the way, the last screen I missed is that the IDLE, or whatever it's called, is you do that directly with the SBA yourself. It's pretty simple. You go to sba.org or sba.gov, I think, and it's pretty simple.
It wasn't
So,
simple like 3 weeks ago. I think it was a lot more complex, and then they basically scrapped it entirely and then made it a form.
so it sounds like most of you have applied for this one or both programs. Is that right? Is that fair? Okay. So, am I right that you kind of all have a sort of basic understanding, but maybe some of the details could be clarified? Or I don't want to drone on about all the technicalities on the program, but I'd like to give a quick overview and try to help fill in any missing blanks.
Well, I think one thing that, I'm sorry.
If you want to talk, by the way, guys, do this. If you want to talk, put your hand in front of the screen like that, and then Perry or I will call on you, okay?
I'll start by saying the first question that I had when I was thinking about this stuff, I asked my accountant, I said, what can I use this money for? Can I pay a credit card balance or whatever? And, you know, I learned generally what his perspective. So Robert, I'd love for you to speak to that. I think that might be useful for some people.
So basically, I mean, as Michael's already touched on, and Perry as well, and other people. So there's basically two programs. Both are out of money right now and are not available unless you've applied. One is the Paycheck Protection Program, or what we call PPP, and the other is a disaster loan direct from the SBA, where you can apply for, you can get up to $10,000 forgiven, although I can see some people only got $1,000. The main thrust of the PPP program is Congress wanted companies who've been impacted by the COVID crisis to keep paying employees. So the PPP money needs to go for payroll, rent, healthcare costs. It can go for your mortgage if you have a mortgage in your business. That's what it needs to go for. The idea is to take companies that are suffering somewhat and keep them on payroll. There is a forgiveness provision where if you use the money within the first 8 weeks for these specific purposes, payroll, rent, healthcare, and interest on certain debts, that they will forgive that amount of money. So, you know, if you give you $50,000, embedded in the agreement is you spend 40 of it on these items in the first 8 weeks, only 10 of it is due back, and you have up to 2 years to pay the money back. So there's, yeah, go ahead.
All right, so just regarding payroll, let me give you a scenario. So in our little company, Schaefer Rogers, there are two of us. We don't take, we don't get a salary. We, you know, from time to time, when funds are available, we whack them up, and we pay payroll taxes, etc. So how does that work with regard to this notion of payroll?
So Perry, is your organization a partnership?
It's a corporation, actually. It's an S corp, I think.
Okay, so if you're an S corp, then you need to take payroll out of the company, W-2 wages.
Yes, and we do, but again, not in any sort of regular basis, so to speak.
Well, I don't think we really understand yet how the mechanics of the forgiveness program, except what I expect is that you need to issue yourself W-2 wages during the 8 weeks after you get the money to yourself and your partner, and that will qualify. What's really interesting about this program is that they did not exclude business owners. I mean, a lot of times the federal programs are geared for the rank and file employees, and they exclude the shareholders or the partners. But here, you just got to keep paying yourself. What I'm not totally clear on is if you're not incorporated, how do you pay yourself? And there's some guidance on that just came out like 2 days ago, and I've got to review that, and I can get back to you guys.
Veronica?
Yeah, I'm sure you're going to get to this, but I'm an S corp as well, and not only do I put myself through payroll, but I also pull a draw, which I'm sure that many business owners do. So my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that for PPP I can file in two ways. I can file with my W-2 and I can file with my K-1. Is that correct?
I'm not that I know of, but I may be. I don't know that that's the case, but I would check into it. The idea is that some of the money you're taking out is payroll and some is what's called S corp profits. And that's not supposed to be compensation for services. That's really supposed to be compensation. It's basically profits. But I can check into that, Veronica, and get back to Michael and get to you that way.
I have a
Is that-
question about that too.
Go ahead, jump in.
When we got the EIDL, by the way, and that covered $1,000 per employee. For the PPP, we applied, and we have a number of people on staff, and then we have a couple partners. The staff people are paid through payroll, and the partners take draws. However, the draws are basically biweekly regimented draws. They're just done separately than through payroll. And so when we applied, we included the draws, but when we submitted our W-1 or W-3 and 941, it only really included the employee costs. And so, we have Chase, and so we got screwed. But eventually, if there is more money in the program, I don't know if the partner draws are gonna set off an alarm.
Are you a partnership?
Yeah, we're at LLC.
You're an LLC. So earlier this week, the SBA came out with some guidance on this, which unfortunately we wish they'd come out a little bit sooner. If you're a sole proprietor, you can count up to $100,000 of your earnings as salary. If you're a partnership or an LLC and you file a partnership return, you can count up to $100,000 per partner as part of your PPP payroll. What this implies is that you can count your partnership payments, the payments that you make during the 8 weeks, as part of your salary. But this gets back to what I said earlier. I'm not entirely sure the mechanics of how that one component works, but the thrust of the program is it should include that, the payments you make to yourselves as partners.
I guess part of my question is, can we include those payments to the partners as part of the monthly payroll that we're using to calculate the 2.5x?
Yes. Yes, you
okay,
can.
So that's what we did. So hopefully, if there ever is more money, then
yes, and that's what they clarified. They clarified that specifically. Let me just cross over to one other thing, because I think it's an unanswered question, and that is the disaster loan, the EIDL. That money does not have to be used for PPP expenses. Does not have to be used for payroll and utilities. Is designed really to help keep your company going for expenses that you would have incurred anyway had you not run into this whole COVID crisis. It's much broader. You can borrow the money for much, much longer. The amount of money you can borrow is a little bit less, but it's still significant. And as you probably heard, up to $10,000 of that money can be forgiven, much like the PPP loan. However, if you take advantage of that forgiveness, it reduces the amount that you can have forgiven in the PPP loan. So you can't double dip in that sense. But the critical thing is you can use the money for other purposes. It does not have to go to payroll and these other things we've been talking about.
Got it. So basically, if I'm understanding, you can use that $10,000 for things other than employees or rent, and it will
Yes.
be forgiven. But then when you calculate your total amount getting back from the PPE, you've got to deduct that 10,000.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
So it does not increase your forgiveness. However, if you applied for the EIDL and that's all you applied for, they will get the money to you quickly, as you already saw, and up to 10,000 of it is forgiven, no questions asked. You can spend it on anything with your business.
Okay.
When I did the idle, I don't recall that more than $10,000 was available. Is that, did I
Well,
get that wrong?
Advance.
The way I
Sorry?
understand,
Go
The
ahead.
$10,000, Perry, was an advance on whatever they deem you're suitable for on a loan.
yeah, let me clarify, Perry, let me clarify
Okay.
that, and let me
Go ahead.
expand on that a little bit. The way I understand this is this EIDL loan is part of a larger SBA project, and it has more requirements here. It has to be collateralized if it's over a certain amount. It has to be documented. There may be a personal guarantee involved. I'm not sure about that. So what I'm assuming is that the money you got right now is the emergency grant, but that there would be an opportunity to apply for a further amount, but that would not be forgivable. You'd have to pay it back eventually.
I have a question there too, because I think I missed a piece of that. I did the SBA piece and I applied, but then I read today something about having to ask for the advance. And Veronica, is that what happened to you?
No, I'm not aware of that.
So you just,
There was a checkbox somewhere on the application.
it was right on the application?
I believe so. I believe there was a checkbox that said something about requesting advance.
Got it. Got it.
But I understood that that's no longer a possibility.
Well, it is right
not
now.
anymore, but I already did it. I wondered if I had missed a step that I had to go back and redo. I haven't received my.
So I would frame it this way, that yes, they have shut off the funding. And in fact, some of the client applications that we had submitted to our bank, they did not have an opportunity to submit to the SBA before the window closed, and they got kicked out too. So just getting it to your bank doesn't guarantee that you got through in time. It looks like, I'm reading that it looks like Congress is going to attempt to extend this program. And so there may be another bite at the apple. If there's not, and if some of you will truly want to be in this program and can't be in the program, there's still one more thing available. It's called an employee retention credit. And I can talk about that when you're ready, Michael, for me to touch on it.
I think that's a great place to
Sure.
go, because I think since there is no more money, it's like, what else right now? What else can we do? I want to ask if everybody can put their hands up with this. How many people have more than 3 employees? I mean, are we talking about? Okay, so good. A good percentage of us. Good percentage. I do too. So, okay. I think that that's important, because we're trying to figure out how to pay our employees and to see, A, if we can get money to help us, but B, see if we can get a grant for it, which is better than having to pay it back. So go ahead, Robert.
So there's something called the employee retention credit, which probably hasn't gotten quite so much publicity yet because the focus so far has been on these SBA loans. It applies to you if, one, you did not get a PPP loan and your business has been materially impacted by the COVID crisis. And there's 2 ways we evaluate whether you're impacted. One is the government shut you down. I mean, you have a restaurant, you can't function, or you have a clothing store and you have to close. So you immediately qualify if you're in that group. The second group are people who simply have a major drop in revenue compared to last year. If your gross income is off more than 50% in any one quarter compared to the same quarter a year ago, then you qualify for the retention credit. The amount of money is not significant, but it is something. And basically the idea is you can get a credit of up to half of, it's around a $5,000 credit per employee. And it's a direct refundable credit you take on your payroll tax returns. It's not huge, but if you've got 3 employees on payroll, you can get a credit for up to half their wages. And the maximum credit per employee can be $5,000 and then some. So it could help you out later on this year if you strike out with PPP.
Is that a deduction on your 2019 taxes?
It's not a deduction. It's a refundable credit. It's money in your pocket.
Oh, okay. Great.
So, and it's not handled through the SBA. It's handled actually when you file your payroll tax returns. You take a credit directly on the return. I believe you attach a form, and it works through that way. You cannot take the credit and participate in the PPP loan. So it's one or the other.
And that's a substantial amount. If you have a bunch of employees, you could maybe do better with that credit than the amount that they may forgive you for 8 weeks worth of payroll, right?
It could be, yeah. I mean, the catch is you do have to keep your employees on payroll, and you do have to pay it.
Right. Yeah.
Robert, a quick question. Do they specify whether they have to be full-time or part-time employees?
I don't think it can be I'm not sure. I think it could be any employee. And not only that, but you don't have to furlough all your employees. It can be some of them. I'm sorry, I'm not giving you a direct answer on that, but I can certainly find out. I'm pretty sure it's any employee.
Anybody else have any questions that are?
I have a question here.
Yeah, Greg.
So I did through my bank. I got a notification of having an E-Tran number and a loan number. I haven't seen any money show up. I just got that information today. Does that mean I'm going to get a loan, or do we know? Does anybody know? Has anybody gotten those information and not gotten a loan, or they got that number and got a loan? Just curious.
Anybody? Has anybody gotten any money besides Veronica? Okay. Jeremy, Leandro?
I don't know if it counts, but what I got is the $1,200 from the government.
Okay. That counts, but not exactly what I was talking about, but that's good. And how about you, Jeremy?
Like I said, I got the EIDL for my employees. They're up to 10,000.
Did you get a full 10,000?
No, you only get 1,000 per employee.
Per employee. Okay. But you did get the 1,000 per. Great. How were you notified of that? Did you just find it in your bank account, or?
Yeah. Just found it in my bank account.
No, nothing.
But I filed from the SBA early on, directly from the SBA early on, and it just showed up, I think, maybe 2 or 3 days ago.
Okay.
Mine showed up this morning, and it just, in the, how it shows kind of like letters and numbers, it said idle. So I was like, okay, well, that's what that was.
Okay. So I don't think we know what that other numbers, Robert, do those numbers mean anything to you?
I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know. I'm curious, just on a side note, how many of you got stimulus payments? Because that's been showing up this week. $1,200 per adult. Anyone?
How many of us qualify?
Well, you have to disclose your income, because if it's too high, you don't get it. But if
you have an LLC, it's extremely hard to qualify for that.
Yeah.
All right.
Got it. Anything else? We've got about another 7 or 8 minutes on our. Yes, go ahead, Lacey.
This question's for Robert. So I have an LLC. I'm a sole proprietor ownership of it. I applied for the PPP and received it for the entire amount. The only thing that was asked of me to figure out what my amount was that I was going to qualify was the total amount of 1099s I filed last year. Well, I filed over 54 1099s last year, and so I got a fairly large chunk of change from that. Now I'm trying to figure out, as I'm going into this payroll, it's enough to keep, a handful of the people that I use constantly afloat, but it's not enough to pay 54 people. Do I need to be concerned with that?
I'm very surprised. So they based your loan on payment to independent contractors?
Yes.
Because that surprises me, because the clarification I read was that it has to be actual payroll. It cannot be independent contractors.
Yeah, I've been hearing that they've been taking the 1099s, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because that's not consistent payments.
Yeah, because the people receiving those 1099s can also apply for a loan based on what they receive. But I think your question now is, if there's a reduction in the number of people you pay, will it reduce your forgiveness, right?
Correct.
I believe it does, because part of the arithmetic behind the forgiveness is that they want you to keep the same number of employees in force now during the COVID crisis as you had on February 15th. Now, you probably applied based on your 2019 payroll costs or 1099 expenses, right?
Correct.
So I'm not sure quite how the mechanics of the forgiveness will work, but I do know that if you are paying fewer people, that you may not get complete forgiveness.
Okay, that was my
But
concern.
take what you got, and the rest is a 1% loan that you can pay back later on.
Great, thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Veronica.
How do people that are collecting unemployment, which I filed for around the same time that I filed for the EIDL, deal with if and when we do get PPP? I know that there's conflict on like, can you have both? And if I get PPP and it's more than my unemployment, which it will be, do I then call the unemployment office and just stop that payment?
Rod, are you an S Corp?
Yes.
So we've had this conversation with our clients. I don't think you can double dip. But that doesn't mean that you can't dip on one side now and dip on another later. You can't be you have to be paying payroll to have the forgiveness. You can't be on unemployment while you're doing payroll. I think the question in my mind is, can you be on unemployment for maybe about another 6 weeks and then put yourself back on payroll and snatch the forgiveness? And I'm not sure, but it's a really good question. Pardon me?
That was my plan. That was what I was going to do.
I don't know if it'll work yet. I've thought the same thing through. So I have read that there's an exclusion between doing both, but I don't yet know how that works.
But you wouldn't be doing both if, as you said, you're filling in the time before getting that PPP fund, those funds, right? So if I stopped payroll 2 weeks ago, I'm on unemployment until I get that money, then I put myself back on payroll and I stop getting the unemployment.
Well, and let me add that I think that part of the intent of the program is, so they're walking in now basically saying, okay, all you employers, you have all this money. And the employers are saying, well, fine, we let all of our employees go because we had no money to pay them last month. So implicit in the program is this opportunity to rehire your furloughed employees. So I think there is an opportunity to put yourself back on payroll. But to do exactly what I know you have in mind, I'm not sure how far you can go.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
But the idea, which Robert, I think, is mentioning, and I think that this is something that I've thought through, and a lot of people I've talked to have thought through, is like, hey, let's go for it and get as much as we can. We'll figure out how much. If it's only a 1% loan, then if you have to pay it back, it's not such a big deal. It's better than, 5% or 7% or 10%, which, you might be able to get someplace else. So, it's not a bad rate for a loan if you're going to just use it as a loan, but you really have to think about what you're going to use it for, because if it's not forgiven, then when you have no business, you have to still pay back the loan. So,
right.
In the 3 minutes, are you asking a question? No. The thing that I see, and I'd love for everybody to quickly respond to this, is that those of us who are trying to keep our employees, which is great, and this is going to help, but in our business, how many of you are able to continue to get some work? I got one PSA, which will pay me enough to maybe pay for lunch, I think, for my staff. Anybody else? Is anybody else okay? You're doing some casting.
Yes, we are.
Oh, fantastic.
We're doing virtual and self-submission. We're doing a whole bunch, 3 different national campaigns that won't be shooting till sometime in the summer, but it's out and it's working. We built the self-submission system back in February when we saw this happening.
Fantastic. Good job. Anybody else? Anybody else working? Okay. Who's that? That's Roland.
Roland.
What do you got? Do you have work as well for, are you post? What do you do? I don't.
Animation, VFX, and live action when that'll come again. Yeah, we have a couple of our existing clients that came back for Nike work, for a couple other things out of Cartoon Network, etc. But it's definitely seen a huge drop. And we also did get a free PSA out of the deal. specifically for teaching kids about COVID-19. So we're excited to be doing that one, but of course it's for no money.
Yeah.
So yeah, and a little print work here and there.
Okay, great, great.
We have one client working, not benefiting us, but we're happy that it's happening. You know, they've done like shooting a CEO in their home, delivering a message to stakeholders. They do a lot of work in higher ed, so they're getting involved in virtual commencements that might involve, you know, live streaming and who knows what. It could be an AR, VR piece if somebody wants to buy it, but they have a couple of contracts with schools that are, you know, want to do something. So, you know, it's nothing gigantic, but it's something.
Okay, then the last question I'll have, because this is this is me. I have a space which is large and expensive and sitting in New York City, and you know that's my biggest cost that I can't deal with. And it has really not a lot to do with the PPE, though. You can use some of that money if I get any on my rent.
You can use 1/4.
1/4, right?
1/4.
Is anybody else having issue? I mean, I may have to get out of that space. Anybody else are you having those kind of issues?
Major issue.
Yeah, major issue.
Yeah. We're talking almost weekly with our landlord, who is incredibly aware of everything that's going on, and we're owner managed, fortunately, and we've been in the building for 15 years. So he knows what our plight is. He knows what our industry plight is. He has not asked us for April rent at all. He says, we're working something out. I'll let you know what that'll be.
Got it.
So we're hopeful.
Oh, that's nice. Good.
I do have one follow-up question to the group, if I may ask.
Please.
While some of us do have a little bit of business, what's the estimating like? Okay. That's the
I have
key.
one bid.
Yeah, we've sent a lot out, but the dates are like, Netflix has us on a few things, and they're saying October.
We've been sending out bids, but certainly not as many as we had in the past, of course.
It's hard to imagine live action anytime soon.
Yeah.
You know, what I call normal live action anytime soon. In general.
Yeah, I've got a few live action leads that are unrealistic for where everybody is at right now, and they supposedly think they're going to be shooting the beginning of June.
No.
I got one of those yesterday, and I told them I'm not even wasting my time quoting it.
Not happening. I spoke with one of our producers this morning about a job that they plan on shooting, let's say in August or in September. The new line item is cleaning and disinfecting allocations and costs. And we're even adding that if we go back to live casting, to have to clean and disinfect the studio every night.
Every time, right? Yeah.
I have a question for you, Paul. So speaking of casting, I mean, in terms of insurance, is there a piece going on now for you that's active relative to your insurance or that concerns you?
No, we're not doing live casting, so we're not.
Oh, okay. So it's a non-issue. Never mind.
It's all virtual.
Yeah. Okay. All good.
But that is a good point, because my understanding is insurance companies aren't insuring productions until they figure this out. So it's like
that makes sense.
I wouldn't even attempt to try to put something together right now until there's some clarification. And as far as live action production the way we knew it, I don't think we'll see it until we see a vaccine. There will be other kinds of live action production. We'll stagger crews and have fewer people on a set and stuff like that. And a 2-day shoot will become 3 or 4 days. Prep people like craft service will have extra prep time because all that food is going to have to be separated into individual portions, and it's going to change, and it will be fine. We'll figure it out. We've done it before, but it's going to be a slow reentry, is what I think.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I had a conversation with SAG on Friday of last week, and the key question is, how are they coming up with any best practices, guidelines? And they said, no, we're going to let producers do that.
This is ridiculous.
That's what you pay them for.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Okay, listen, guys, I think I'm going to end this because I want to keep it sort of on a schedule, but this was great. I'd love any of your advice.
Thank you all. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Perry. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
And
Thank you
all
for having me.
showing up. It was
Michael,
great.
you
Very
led this,
interesting.
so thanks for you. Hey, Robert, by the way, have you considered a career as voiceover? You have a terrific
Had a
voice.
good
I
voice.
thought you guys all had great voices.
Okay, guys, I'm going to send you an email asking you for any help with how we can do this. Perry and I are talking about doing a couple more of these. So
This is helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for
Thank
joining
you all.
us.
Have a safe weekend.
okay.
Great to see you all.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Meeting you all.
Bye.
Thank you. Have
Bye-bye.
a nice weekend.